Hi, and welcome to this 18th video of the Flipped History series. For this video, there are three learning intentions. The first one is to explain the obstacles to economic diversification, and the success criteria is I can explain the specific obstacles to economic diversification in New France. The second learning intention is to indicate elements of continuity and change in the fur trade. The success criteria is I can indicate the elements that continued in the fur trade after 1663 and the elements that changed. And the final learning intention is to explain the measures taken by the various intendants. The success criteria is that I can explain the measures that were taken by the various intendants and explain their consequences. After 1663, the fur trade continued to be the most important economic activity practiced in the colony. In 1664, the Minister of Marine established the French West India Company. It was given a monopoly in the trade of beaver and moose hides. However, there was free trade in other furs, and as a result, many young men went to live in the bush and trade with the Aboriginals. By 1681, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, the Minister of Marine, instituted what was known as the congé system. Each year, 25 congés, or trade licenses, were issued by the governor. However, many people continued to trade illegally, and as a result, beaver pelts continued to flood into the colony. So, trade was suspended because of the oversupply of fur, and the territory that the French were controlling was shrank. And they included closing some forts, which was controversial because some saw this as a betrayal to their Aboriginal allies. By 1715, the market revived, and trade was dominated by a number of small bourgeois merchants who hired what were known as voyageurs. These were men that worked in the winter times to go and paddle the trade goods out to the various forts and to return with the beaver pelts. Wages were double to 4 times what an average laborer could earn in New France. The fur trade as the main economic activity, however, posed problems for the colony. The colony was not diversified, and the intendants wanted to practice what is known as economic diversification. Diversification in an economy is when it means that you rely on more than one product for trade. So you try to encourage a number of different industries to be developed. If there is a number of different industries, then the economy is susceptible to failure, because if the one industry collapses, then there goes everyone's wealth. The first intendant, Jean Talon, tried to encourage economic diversification. He tried to encourage the export of wood for shipbuilding and also the building of ships in New France. He also tried to promote weaving, brewing, and established some tanneries to make leather. In the small scale, it worked. However, Talon ran into problems finding the necessary skilled laborers to promote these industries. So, for example, there wasn't enough skilled sawmen to establish sawmills. And as well, there weren't enough established skilled shipbuilders to build ships. Shipbuilding was also expensive because they needed to bring in a whole bunch of specialized goods for the ships. While New France had a lot of timber, they needed to import iron fittings, anchors, cordage, compasses, and a whole bunch of other manufactured goods that were needed for the actual ships. However, this economic diversification led to more triangular trade, but overall, it wasn't a big success, and it kind of stopped when Jean Talon returned to France. There was a second period of economic diversification, which happened in the 1730s and 1740s. This period was led by another intendant, Gilles Hocal, who was given instructions by the king to increase trade within France's Atlantic Empire. In the 1730s, he obtained aid of 500,000 French pounds, or livres, to invest in non-fur trade businesses. The two that were the most successful were the ironworks at the forges of Saint-Maurice and the establishment of a royal shipyard at Quebec. While Quebec had another shipyard, it mostly produced boats for New France. These were smaller boats that were able to go up and down the rivers, but they were not building large transatlantic ships. In Hocquet's time, the diversification program was hampered by a war between Britain and France. The British blockaded New France, and in 2 years, only 5 ships made it through the British naval blockade. So there was no market for the goods that were being produced in New France. However, New France did start to export some of its surplus agricultural products at this time to the fortress at Louisbourg and some to France's colonies in the Caribbean. Overall, the economy of New France still maintained its dependence on the fur trade. The fur trade was the number one way of gaining wealth, but it wasn't the main economic activity of most people. That remained agriculture. Well, thanks for watching. When you finish your notes and your summary, please consider the following essential question. What is necessary for a society to function?